Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford, and I'm trying to remember to do more of these short book review videos. So here's a book that I first found in 2012, just at the library in Santa Monica when I worked at UCLA. And it's called Empires of the Word by Nicholas Ostler. And what this book is not a book of historical linguistics per se, but rather more a book of language history. So what is the history of the known major languages of the world and the people speaking them? What historical conditions decided, what was the lingua franca of, uh, of Bronze Age Mesopotamia, for example, something like that. How is it that China has retained a continuous tradition of speaking one language that, of course, changes over time and diversifies over time, but how is it that that's one continuous story, whereas in Britain, for example, the language on the lips of most residents has changed quite a bit in the last 2,000 years, certainly 3,000, 4,000 years in most places. So rather than looking at how the language itself is changing, it's looking at who is speaking what and how that's changing and maybe why that's happening. Um, he tells a lot of really interesting stories here. I mentioned Mesopotamia as an interesting example, and that's a story that he tells super well. The replacement of Akkadian by Aramaic, one of the first examples that we have of lingua franca changing in an area. He talks about the earliest examples of language contact between Indo-European languages and then indigenous New World languages, and why there are so many more indigenous language speakers in Latin America than in North America. That in itself is a really interesting story. He looks at the history of Egypt, um, what it finally took to replace Egyptian in its own homeland with Arabic. Uh, all of this just endlessly readable, like it's novel-like in its complexity and drama, and adds a real richness, I think, to our appreciation of, well, exactly what it says, language history. So as a historical linguist, I appreciated the historical background, and I think anyone interested in history will appreciate knowing more about who is speaking what, when, where.